So I'm going to continue in a series that I've been working on before. Uh, the idea that there's a potential for a convention of states occurring, and the question arises, if you're going to be proposing amendments to the Constitution, maybe we should be thinking about the kind of things that'll actually bring the government back under some form of control of the people, or at least make it so that its power is a little bit more limited than it currently is. There we go. Okay, this one's a little on the whimsical side, and it's going to need a lot more verbose warning or wording than what I've given you here. So the gist of what this is: Congress will no longer meet in Washington, D.C. U.S. senators will reside in their state capitals and representatives in their districts. Congress shall meet long distance with current technological methods. So the gist of this is because of current technology, there really isn't a good reason why congressmen actually need to meet in Washington, D.C. anymore. Um, there's a lot of potential good that comes out of this. First, uh, by scattering them all back to their states, it's going to be a lot harder for lobbyists to do their thing in terms of having Congress all in one spot to be able to shower the money on them to get the results they want. Also, this will break up the Washington staff. The people who write the bills uh, won't be able to sit in one place and uh, get all the key people together in one spot and just say, okay, yeah, we know how this is going to go. It'll obviously it doesn't stop them from doing lobbying, and it doesn't stop them from potentially writing new laws and all the other, but it should at least complicate the process. The other good thing is congressmen who are living in their home state rather than far, far, far away from Washington, D.C., are probably going to be a lot more likely to listen to their constituents. Um, Another benefit of this will be the kind of dirt bags who seem to like wanting to go to Washington, D.C. for essentially cocaine and hookers and Washington high society. Uh, Guys who aren't going to be traveling from their state, who are basically going to be sitting in the same state capital, who've been climbing the political ladder up there, might be of a slightly different moral bent. Maybe they'll be thinking more of their states than they will be of the national center. I do see some problems, potential shenanigans that can occur here, where voting could be tampered with long distance, other things like that. And I'm not 100% sold on this idea, but something along these lines, I think, would have some practical benefit. So this actually falls along the lines of something I was talking to with one of the people who've been watching my videos. Uh, I made a kind of quippy video on reparations. Uh, in all honesty, the real reason I threw it out there was I really wanted the idea of the federal government getting out of the landholding business. And so, what this amendment says is the U.S. government may only hold land in the District of Columbia and military installations the federal government and state have bilateral purchase or lease agreements for. If the federal government has acquired any land for military use and no bilateral agreement exists, the federal government must negotiate a bilateral agreement with the state within 10 years of the passage of this amendment, or the land will become property of the state in which the land resides. All non-military land held or managed by the federal government will be transferred to the control of the state the land resides in within 10 years of the passage of this amendment. So essentially what this will do is force the federal government to divest all the illegal land it currently holds. Now, this has unbelievable amounts of benefit. First, It'll probably create an economic boom for probably a couple of decades, and it'll be a non-inflationary boom. It might actually be a beneficially deflationary boom, depending on what the Federal Reserve decides to do with it. Because what it's going to do, it's going to immediately create wealth without having to print money to back it up. Because presumably, I mean, obviously, some states are just going to be dopes and do the same thing with that land that the federal government did, but others are going to start finding creative ways to make use of the land. Now, the benefits come that a state is probably going to be more likely to want to both protect the resource value of whatever the land represents. I mean, if it's a naturally beautiful area like Yellowstone, it will probably remain. It'll probably go from a national park to a state park, uh, and they might even find ways of allowing people to, you know, exploit things as long as they clean up after themselves. Uh, Lots of resources will get used in a good way. Now, the other benefit is there's a lot of states that have large portions of their land controlled by the federal government that actually impacts their ability to collect revenue, which in many ways makes them dependent on the federal government to make up the shortfall. So this basically eliminates one thing some of the states need the federal government for. This also uh, means the end of Bureau of Land Management and the Forestry Service. Uh, Department of the Interior probably can be shrunk in a fairly major way. One thing I just realized I didn't throw in here is I would make a statement along the lines of that all mineral rights and water rights go with this land. Uh, this would be, like I said, a massive boom to the United States. Okay, this one's a little bit hard to explain, and the verbiage probably does not capture what it needs to do, so I'll read it and then explain it. All currently enacted federal taxes, revenue measures, and user fees will expire in 10 years from passage. All tax, user fee, and revenue bills created by Congress after the passage of this amendment must include the precise expenditure item the tax will be used for. All expenditures must come from the revenue source that specifically denotes this expenditure. As the source of the spending, mismatches between revenue and expenditures that result in overages must be returned to the states at the end of the fiscal year in proportion to the state's population as of the last census. Shortfalls may not be made up by selling bonds or transferring monies from other revenue streams. Uh, so this does two things. One, it essentially creates a balanced budget amendment, and the other item it does is it ends general revenue. So one of the big issues or big problems I think the federal government has is that you have all these various tax bills and uh, user fees and all this other stuff, and all the money comes piling into one big account. And even if it does have another account like Social Security, they can just tap it at any point they feel like it. What this is trying to do, and again, like I said, the verbiage needs to be tweaked heavily, but the gist of it is when Congress, well, first, what it does is all the current taxes will expire in 10 years. And any new taxes, you're going to have to say, like, okay, I am passing a 1% uh, 1% tax on whiskey, and the revenue will be used to buy, uh, 100 Abrams tanks. Okay, and so that money has to be used for the express purpose it stated for. If they screw it up and it's like, oh, geez, there's only enough money for 90 tanks, well, that's all they get. If they screw up and it's like, oh, we got enough for 110 tanks, well, no, you said 100, so it's 100 tanks. So this forces well, it forces good accounting. Essentially, is that you have to match your expenditures to your income. All there is to it. But again, lot of verbiage needs to be changed to make that work. Just trying to get the general concept across. All right. Government at any level has no power to set prices or create standards for contracts. No government entity may alter or suspend existing contracts unless due process of the judicial system is used. Government at any level has no power to regulate the hours of operations of business, nor power to restrict the movement of individual citizens without due process, nor the power to mandate the use of medical devices, procedures, or chemical or biological compounds on U.S. citizens. Essentially, what this is an anti-pandemic amendment, and the idea is if we don't do something proactive, government will do this same damn thing again at some time in the future. Guarantee it. They got away with it. They're not going to uh, put that toolkit away unless we lock it away. And the idea here is uh, hopefully this covers all the elements of uh, essentially pandemic lockdown procedures that were put in place that had very little effect on the course of the disease but crippled the economy. Okay, so that's essentially what I wanted to cover tonight. If you have any ideas along these lines, you agree, disagree, let me know in the comments. Uh, please like. Uh, please subscribe if you haven't. So, do appreciate you sitting here with me tonight, listening to my thoughts. I think I have a few more of these, but we have a couple things coming up. I think might be interesting. I think Colin and I have another joint video or two in mind that we can probably do. All right. Again, thank you for your time.